Hello and welcome to our strategy outlook on 5G cloud, part of our Spotlight on 5G series. I'm Ray Lemaitre, Editorial Director at TelecomTV. Now, the telco cloud has been in construction for a number of years, but the arrival of 5G and its associated architecture and requirements has accelerated deployments and forced network operators into making strategic decisions about their cloud architectures. A key consideration relates to how much of the cloud infrastructure is under their management or outsourced to others, particularly the hyperscaler trio of AWS, Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud. Another is the impact of cloud native, as 5G core deployments and the introduction of Open RAN architectures expose telco teams to new operational processes and containerized functions. We're going to look at what resources are needed and which applications are driving those requirements, the key decisions that need to be taken right now by network operators, and the lessons learned from early movers. Coming up later in the program, we have a roundtable discussion featuring executives from Google Cloud, Red Hat, HPE and Intel. Plus we talk to a number of telecoms leaders to get their views on 5G cloud. But first, we have an exclusive interview with Neil McRae, Managing Director, Architecture and Technology Strategy and BT Chief Architect at BT. I spoke with Neil earlier and started by asking him about BT's network cloud.
Our intention is to make it as open as possible. I'll maybe cover that later on, but we're building what we call cloud pods all over the country, initially to run our own workloads, particularly around network services. So we have two workloads running on it today. One is CDN and the other is kind of authentication for our broadband platform. The big piece of work that we're doing right now is to put our 5G dual stack core onto it. So a new platform from Ericsson that's cloud native that will do 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G standalone, and a number of other capabilities. It's going well. I think probably the first earlier use cases were much more simpler. 5G core is a complex beast, both in the networking demands, the security demands, and then the individual application demands. Plus, we leverage two or three other partners, Oracle and Nokia, for some aspects of our 5G core. And just bringing all that together it's been challenging, I think it's fair to say, but it's a kind of juicy technical challenge that I kind of get out of bed for in the morning. The great news is that we're kind of over the kind of peak of development, and COVID has given us some real workplace challenges that we might talk about later.
Okay, excellent. So you're already down this path to having your network cloud support 5G. Is this really the only way to properly build and manage and run a 5G core, to have it on some kind of distributed cloud platform?
Yeah, I think when you look at the 5G use cases and what we call the 5G experience rates, I think it's hard to do it centralized, which is typically how we delivered, 4G to some extent, 3G for sure. You've got use cases that are low latency. You've got use cases that are really high bandwidth. Even the most basic use case, enhanced mobile broadband. You've got potentially 800 megabit flows appearing on the network randomly. Trying to do that in a centralized way just isn't feasible. And actually, the great thing about being a converged player is that we've got a huge amount of experience in big flow traffic on our fixed network, because we obviously run BT broadband, which is, hits 20 plus terabits every day. And we've taken that traffic engineering expertise and really mapped it onto, okay, how would we build 5G so that we were able to take advantage of our phenomenal core network and give that kind of high bandwidth experience that customers want. And I think when you look at the independent kind of reviews of our network from Ookla and those people, you really see it. You know, we're not just a little bit above the competition, we're a lot above the competition. And we're number one network in the UK, both in fixed and in mobile. And it's because of that converged knowledge that we've been able to really drive that from our 4G leadership position into our 5G leadership position.
Okay, excellent. Now, the network cloud, is this able to help support private network strategies of enterprise customers as well? Could it play a role in those kind of services?
Yeah, absolutely. Our whole ethos of building network cloud was to enable the network to bring compute where you needed it, and to integrate it into the network in a really highly automated way. You know, we started off with, I think, roughly about 6 pods. I think we're close to about 60 now. And we've built the platform to scale to being able to deploy perhaps, you know, a blade server or a combined disaggregated router server into customer premises to deliver edge services, starting probably with security maybe, but other services that we're working on around video, but very much where we need compute, we want to take network cloud. Now, you know, some customers may have a view on what compute they want, and you know, again, we're flexible and open to that. But our kind of default fast way of deploying stuff is on network cloud, and we see it. You know, we've been able to turn workloads on and off, particularly through the COVID period, really quickly on network cloud, and to some extent, our timing was pretty good on network cloud and being able to use it in a way that supported some of the COVID challenges we faced. And you know, that flexibility, that on-demand elasticity and automation is really what the power of you know, we talk a lot about virtualization and cloud native, but they're enablers for the real benefits, which are you know, truly elastic, truly automated. And it's impressive to see the change that it enables in our thinking about running the network, and our thinking about how we actually give customers an even better experience than we've already given them.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see that reflected now in what enterprises are looking for from the market and what they think they can do, moving from that static to that flexible scenario.
I'm just going to build on that. I think 5G in enterprises is the big opportunity for telcos, but also it's the big opportunity for industry, particularly here in Europe, where we're not as efficient as say the Far East or even the United States. And I think, again, we built 5G with that efficiency play in mind and those efficiency use cases. And network cloud is at the heart of being able to deploy that.
Okay, yeah, really exciting times for the operators and of course for the enterprises. And I think we're seeing that in the kind of ideas and innovation and demands that we're seeing from the enterprise community. Now, of course, another part of flexibility here is the ability to add new applications and services. So how open is the BT Network Cloud in terms of application development? Is this a cloud platform to which you could integrate third-party apps if needed?
Yeah, and we've done that to some extent. I think, look, most cloud platforms run Linux and Kubernetes, and you don't get much more open than those two capabilities. We're also leveraging Juniper's Contrail platform, and whilst we're leveraging the commercial version of that, it is an open platform as well. We're very focused on open source Mano, and working on, you know, leveraging open source as one of the, I wouldn't call it the key foundations, but if there's there has to be a really good reason for us to move away from an open direction. Either it gives us a big, step forward in differentiation, or why would you do it? And I think, we are very much open to listening to application developers, listening to other network application developers to make changes and do things differently on our platform. Because I think if you think, we built and designed this over the past 2 years. Technology's moved on massively just in that 2-year space. And I think if we just stand still and not develop it and add more capabilities, make it more open, make it easier to use, then I think swiftly it becomes it would become a white elephant. But we're really open to it. And also we have to recognize, telcos are not the experts in cloud technology. We're fast followers for sure. But we've still got a lot to learn in that space, and some of the work that some of the hyperscalers are doing and the community is doing in terms of capabilities is really exciting, and we're really happy to onboard it. Where I'd love to be is for BT to be contributing more in this space, back to the open community, and we do that in many areas, but probably not so much in cloud, because it's probably not our strongest skill space. But we're actively working, actually in partnership with Intel, to kind of build much more of a training program that generates the kind of cloud builders, engineering type roles, as opposed to cloud users, which there's, if you want someone to set up, something on a public cloud, there's loads of people that can do it. If you want to hire someone to build you a cloud, that's very difficult to find that skill.
Now, in terms of future developments, what are the key areas of R&D that you would like to see accelerated or advanced that would help you with your cloud strategy? And are you getting everything you need from your tech partners?
My tech partners know that I always want more. They kind of, they're never in any doubt that I'm never satisfied, and because, Ray, I look at how important the network is, particularly over the last year. I mean, I think many of us through the last year have sat and thought about what's important to us. Do we, I've had colleagues that have decided to change their lifestyle because of the COVID situation and think differently. Personally speaking, I've really re-energized about how important the network is, and how sometimes we take it for granted. So, and the last year has taught us that we absolutely can't take the network for granted. And what I'm challenging my suppliers to do is now that we've proven without a shadow of a doubt how crucial the network is, how do we ride that momentum to really make a difference in everything that we do in the world? So how do I go into small businesses and make them twice as efficient? How do I go into major corporations and make it easier for their people to get stuff done? How do I work with governments to improve society and the way that we live? And I really believe the network is a crucial piece of that. And it excites me beyond belief. And just seeing some of the use cases that have appeared over the last year that might never have hit the ground. And also the appetite for change, Ray. We had prior to COVID, we had a Microsoft Teams rollout plan. That rollout plan was like a 2-year program where we moved, 10 people every other week. We moved almost 100,000 people in BT onto Teams in the space of 2 days. And it's that sort of approach to change that I think with the power of 5G is going to really deliver some compelling opportunities for our customers. So my ask to all of our suppliers is help me help our customers become more effective. And it's probably less about technology in some respects, although that is important. And it's more about the mindset of, when we look at some of these use cases, they look hard, but, that's why I get out of bed, is for hard. So I really want to see us, work with some of the telco vendors and other vendors about how do we reuse your technology? How do we refine your technology into a new solution that might help industry? And I'll give you one example, Ray. We took a lot of the lowest path routing technology that we have. Some of it's via the internet, some of it's stuff that we've developed at BT Labs. And we thought, actually, we could reuse this to help transportation. We've got what we call lowest, shortest path first algorithms all over the network. How can we lift them and reuse those algorithms in other, routing use cases? Now, lots of people say GPS, and for sure GPS is helpful. But when you're planning at an industrial level, hundreds of vehicles, much like the thousands of flows we have on the network, how can we use that differently? And that's my challenge to everyone in networks. How do we refine all of this great technology we've got to solve problems in industry and in other ways? And crucially, allow us to make more money and show value? Because, I think if you look at the telecom sector over the last year, Ray, it's not been a great ride. No one, particularly here in Europe, is doing particularly great. And when you look to the future and the investment we need to make, it's crucially important that we make a return. And that's much more than the return that we see on consumer 5G. So, my ask to all of my technology partners is let's solve use cases for customers. We're great at the plumbing. We are the network plumbing geniuses. We can get network plumbing anywhere you want. But let's do much more than we've done before, and that's kind of that's what I'm working on at BT, and it's what we're working on. Our strategy at BT called Ambition 2030 is to become much more of a solution player for our key customers, and really to use the network, as we call it, to connect for good, and that is what I'm focused on. And COVID is really it's the reason why I've always been in networks, is to make the world a better place. But with COVID, I've kind of been re-energized, and the technology that we've got in 5G and cloud technologies, and some phenomenal developers both here in the UK but also all over the world, to really make a difference in the world, so that 3 or 4 years from now, the world's an even better place than what it would have been had we not had these technologies.
That was Neil McRae speaking to me earlier. BT has taken a pragmatic approach, building out its cloud nodes and taking resources closer to customers as needed. And it looks well placed to be able to extend and expand its resources and services portfolio to support its own operations and the evolving needs of enterprises. And we've been speaking to a number of other operators and vendors for our Spotlight on 5G series, and we're going to hear from some of them now. Cloud adoption comes in many different shapes and sizes. We caught up with Rajesh Gadiyar, VP and CTO, Network Platforms Group at Intel, and asked him what he was seeing with regards to hybrid cloud and multi-cloud architectures.
Hybrid and multi-cloud architectures are becoming very popular. Enterprise and telco customers are looking to transform their infrastructure with cloud principles. Now, while this is an important factor in their move to cloud-native deployment models, another key reason is that they desire elasticity to extend their on-premise deployments into a public cloud infrastructure and benefit from the cost and the scale. Now, this is the essence of hybrid cloud, which is an on-prem cloud infrastructure extended to a public cloud. While they do this, they also want to maintain the flexibility to work with any hyperscaler cloud provider based on their capabilities and TCO benefits. So for example, I might actually see tremendous benefit in using an analytics service in a particular cloud service provider infrastructure, whereas I might actually want some cost-efficient compute for my billing applications that I might want to run in another cloud. And so these are all the possibilities because of which it's very compelling to use multiple clouds. So my belief is that eventually all this would drive the adoption of a true multi-cloud enabled infrastructure.
As 5G ramps up, what does Rajesh see as the next phase of network transformation?
As you know, our industry has made incredible progress with NFV and SDN. Disaggregation of hardware and software is very real, and this disaggregation has resulted in two key things. First, network applications are increasingly software defined, and as we enter the 5G era, we have gained tremendous agility in building new and innovative applications. Second, we have opened up the ecosystem with many new players in the networking space. The barrier to entry is significantly reduced with standard server-based hardware and virtualization. We've seen great progress across enterprise and cloud, wireline and wireless infrastructure, RAN, and edge. Now, the next phase of network transformation journey is the cloud-native transformation. While we have made huge progress over the last few years in this space, there is still much more to do to drive further disaggregation of hardware and software and to make the applications composable, automated, and deployable anywhere, whether it's on-premise in an enterprise, at the edge, in the network cloud, or in the hyperscaler cloud. So we need to embrace these cloud-native principles to achieve our objectives. Our industry is looking to emulate the hyperscale cloud service providers for the degree of automation, scalability, disaggregation, and resiliency they've been able to achieve. Cloud native transformation can deliver the TCO benefits and agility that the industry desires. But we have to address some of the current gaps, such as automation, high performance data plane processing, hybrid and multi-cloud deployment models, and so on. So I'm super excited at the opportunity to lead in this next phase of network transformation.
Rajesh there on the adoption of the cloud. And earlier I spoke with Kevin Shatzkamer, Digital Transformation Officer for Telecom at Google Cloud, and asked him why the cloud is important to the 5G plans of service providers and their partners.
Yeah, that's obviously why we're here today, right? And certainly why Google Cloud is a participant within the telecom and communication service provider industry. Maybe I'll share a couple of different reasons, all related to just general transformation that we see happening at the industry level. First and foremost, the networks themselves are transforming. They're transforming in ways that are leveraging technologies that were born in, developed, matured, and operationalized within the public cloud. Technologies like software-defined networks, like Kubernetes. Second, we see operational model transforming, right? We see that the future of operations for the telecom network is data-driven. It will increasingly rely on automation and eventually will leverage artificial intelligence, the development of machine learning models, and all of that is just more scalable and more efficient to do through cloud technologies. Third, we see transformation of service experience. We see the vast majority of the industry today, both consumer as well as enterprise, leveraging public cloud as an enabler for their business and for their own industry transformations. And when we think about the capabilities of 5G plus public cloud partnerships, it creates this opportunity to extend the cloud experience into the networks and to extend the 5G network experience into the cloud. And I think both of those are areas where enterprise organizations are looking for these partnerships to develop and materialize. Another lever I'd call out is customer experience. Similar to data being the lifeblood of operations, certainly it will be the case in the customer experience as well. Everything from learning and buying devices, so how do we give the right information to customers and target them with the right offers that are relevant for what they're looking for at that particular moment? How do we ensure that we build digital supply chains that get those devices to people? How do we ensure that the experience that they have on those devices is a good one? And then lastly, how do we support them when they do call in with issues with the network technology, with issues with their bill, with issues with their service? And how do we leverage AI technologies and automation technologies to really start to transform the end state of customer experience as well, so that people do have a good experience when they call into customer care? And more importantly, so we can build more efficiencies inside of telecom contact centers today, so we can repurpose those investments towards innovation.
I also asked Kevin what he saw as Google Cloud's role in the overall 5G ecosystem.
First off, we're a participant within this ecosystem, right? We work closely with network equipment providers. We work closely with both component as well as systems infrastructure providers. We work closely with ISVs. We work closely with OSS/BSS vendors. We work extremely closely with global systems integrators. So we partner everywhere, and we're open to a wide range of partnerships. And you've seen that over the years with Google in terms of working very closely within others' ecosystems. But secondarily, I think we also have a role to play as an ecosystem builder. So you've seen a number of announcements from us in terms of building out ISV ecosystems around use cases for both leveraging data as well as edge computing for a number of use cases in the retail space, in the healthcare space, in the travel and tourism, automotive space, in the manufacturing space. And I think Google has a very big role to play as an ecosystem builder, because what we enable is simplicity, we enable global reach, and we enable security for application developer ecosystems that are looking to leverage the capabilities of 5G networks plus cloud to reach and develop those new use cases.
Kevin Shatzkamer speaking about the 5G telco cloud and the role of hyperscalers. Now, I also spoke with Dominique Jodoin, President and CEO at NoviFlow, and asked him about the kinds of problems and challenges he sees in the 5G telco cloud and how NoviFlow can help to solve them.
The entire industry is well aware that some problems are not solved yet for 5G. For example, the scaling and optimization of network services running on x86 platforms. And another problem, despite the promises of SDN and NFV over the last years, today carriers are still locked into the walled garden mobile edge computing solution from their traditional suppliers. So Naviflow solves these problems in several ways. First of all, rather than to try to fit all packet processing into an x86 shaped box, or mobile edge computing solutions leverage the programmable networking chips such as the Intel Tofino. Secondly, our CyberMapper is specifically designed to load balance and service chain virtualized telco network services, such as firewalls, DDoS, UPF, etc. And we do this load balancing into the network fabric. And this reduces the hardware cost, the footprint, and also the power consumption. These are all major issues when migrating the services to the network edge. Also, our CyberMapper Edge MEC solution also provides the network operators enough RAM for the internet so they can get the low value internet traffic off the network as soon as possible. For example, let's face it, there's no money to be gained from backhauling the YouTube traffic all across the network. And finally, to solve the walled garden problem that I mentioned before, our CyberMapper Edge is a truly open MEC platform, and it allows our customers to select the best of breed solutions to meet this specific need. And for example, NoviFlow is working with both Fortinet and Radware to deliver the virtualized cybersecurity solutions on the CyberMapper Edge platform. Those are all ways by which we help our customers solve some of the unsolved 5G problems.
I also spoke with Richard Band, Head of Mobile Core and 5G with the Communications Technology Group at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, about how the telecoms network is evolving to embrace cloud-native principles to support 5G strategies and particularly 5G core deployments.
With the adoption of cloud native, we see microservices, we see containers. So we have many more elements in the network to be put together in order to deliver 5G core. Now, disaggregation means somebody needs to do the integration to deliver the end service. Some of our customers are very comfortable doing that. Others require some help.
Richard also mentioning there the important challenge around integration. And you can watch full-length versions of all these interviews. They're all available to view on demand, and you'll find details on the Spotlight on 5G section of the TelecomTV website. Okay, it's time now for our roundtable discussion on 5G cloud. So let me introduce our panelists. Aashish Mishra, Head of Global Sales Strategy and Indirect Sales at the Communications Technology Group at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Rajesh Gadiyar, Vice President and CTO, Network Platforms Group at Intel. Fatih, Chief Architect, Telco Partner Solutions at Red Hat. And Gabriella Di Piazza, Senior Director, Product Management, Telecom and Edge at Google Cloud. So hello everyone, good to see you all. Okay, let's get going with our first question for today. And that question is, for the optimum benefits, should telco clouds be hybrid in nature, or should they rely purely on the support of public cloud platform points of presence? So Rajesh, let's come to you first.
Thank you, Ray. It's a real pleasure to be a part of this awesome panel today with Aashish, Fatih, and Gabrielle. And I'm really looking forward to a great discussion on this next phase of transformation in telco infrastructure with cloud and cloud-native technologies. Yes, I do believe that hybrid and multi-cloud approaches are required as the network infrastructure continues to disaggregate. And distributed computing becomes pervasive with increasing computation at the edge. Now, our customers need choices. And as they deploy cloud-native network applications with microservices, with container technology, they will want the flexibility to use a hybrid and even a multi-cloud deployment model. The need for lower latency, quality of service, and data security and sovereignty will drive an on-prem edge or private cloud, while the need for specialized computing, such as the use of AI acceleration, GPUs, security accelerators, and cost, such as lower TCO and flexibility, will drive deployments in public cloud. I also think some of this migration will happen in a phased manner over time as the technology matures and network applications embrace more cloud-native approaches. For example, many telcos are already targeting hyperscaler cloud for their IT applications, including OSS/BSS applications. But if you look at the radio access network and network core, these are still going to be in the telco infrastructure. Now, over time, we may see some of the network applications get further disaggregated, and it may become viable to place these microservices in multiple cloud clusters and then stitch them together into an end-to-end service. I believe, though, that this level of disaggregation is still a little bit away. In any case, I believe we are in exciting times. The last decade was about the hardware-software disaggregation with NFV and SDN. And the next decade will be all about software and service disaggregation with microservices and cloud-native technologies. So I'm really looking forward to this interesting transition and transformation that is happening with cloud native and how it's being applied to the 5G and the network infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, Rajesh. And Gabrielle, let's come to you. Should telco clouds be hybrid, or should they be relying purely on the public cloud platforms?
Yeah, I believe that hybrid nature will be key and central and here to stay. In fact, I couldn't agree more on Rajesh's comments. So a couple of points here. One is networks are progressively built with cloud-native technologies. This also means that all the transformation that we've seen in the last 5 to 6 to 7 years with network function virtualization and so forth is now undergoing an additional transformation, and therefore hybridity represents an opportunity to, for example, have a common control plane and also distribute applications across on-prem and public cloud. Artificial intelligence takes a central role. And as you know, now we are able to distribute, some of the models all the way from the edge and train them in the cloud. The other aspect I'd like to point out is some of this network function, and Jeff, you mentioned OSS and BSS, but some of the nature of this OSS and BSS application are also becoming hybrid right now, and some of them are much more network function centric than in the past. And then last but not least, public cloud means something very different today in respect to a couple of years ago, which means that in addition to large pools of compute, large networks connecting that, we are now starting to evolve into deployment around POPs and metros and edges and interconnects. So public clouds is actually reaching out much, much closer to end users, and this is really helping carriers build their networks. In addition to this, we are using public cloud and bringing some of those technologies all the way to the customer premise. So I agree that based on the nature of is it network core, is it radio, is it even a private connectivity, this can be basically subtended or placed in different locations. But in any case, we actually see economic benefits of a full hybrid cloud deployment.
Okay, great, thank you. And Fatih, what do you think? Should the telco clouds be hybrid?
So thank you for the opportunity. So one thing I'd like to highlight, what has been going on in our lives and the business. Started last year with COVID, right? So what COVID teach us, you do not expect your consumers and customers to come to your premises or in your infrastructure to continue using your services. Instead, you should meet them where they are, their household, their building, their apartments. In that sense, telecommunication services also need to evolve into that paradigm as well. So, which means either you need to expand your infrastructure with huge investments, or you will find another way to reuse and partner other infrastructure providers. I think in that sense, COVID taught us that the business needs to evolve faster than we anticipated. And in that paradigm, I think hybrid cloud is the key to deliver the good quality of services to the consumers in telco domain as well as communications domain.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Let's move on to our next question now. Are telcos ready to have their business strategies pinned to third-party cloud partners? Have mindsets evolved that far in 2021? Aashish, let's come to you first.
Thanks, Ray, and welcome all panelists here. So the short answer is they're getting there. Now, it's a journey, as other panelists have mentioned. So let's explore that a little bit. So let's talk about what it was pre-COVID and pre-5G. Even before COVID and when, pre-5G, the CIOs, when you talk to telcos, were running hybrid workloads. They are running hybrid workloads today, and they were running hybrid workloads today, which means some on a public cloud, some on-prem. Whereas when you talk to the CTOs and on the network organizations, they had a preference to actually build most of these applications and run all the workloads on-prem. Post-COVID, I mean, as we got into COVID and as we got into 5G, with technologies really gearing up more towards the edge and the enterprise, there is obviously a big push to start, running these workloads in environments that actually help the operators reach the enterprises and the business markets faster. So we're seeing a lot more shift from a COVID perspective and also from a 5G perspective, when you look at private networks, that there is a symbiotic relationship that is kind of developing between the public cloud providers as well as the operators, where each bring to the table certain strengths. And as a result of that, you are seeing more and more, move towards a public cloud when needed, and from an enterprise perspective, you also have a situation where they want to run some workloads on their prem. So, short answer again is that they are getting there, and HPE kind of helps in both aspects to run on both the on-prem, but also help the public cloud providers to do the same. So this is just an evolution, and we will see a lot more symbiotic relationships develop from there.
Okay, that's great, Aashish. Thanks very much. Gabriele, let's come to you next.
Yes, big time. I love the symbiotic term. I would say that instead of discussing dependency, I would discuss opportunity. We're in the middle of many conversation, and this goes way beyond technical conversation. Of course, the public cloud offers the scale footprint, but also the site reliability, security, and connectivity aspects. But what we are noticing is that there's actually an opportunity to create new business models. I agree. In many cases, we're discussing the build out of networks, but in where there are opportunities to actually create new consumption models and something that wasn't able to be in place in the past. At the same time, what's more interesting now is the monetization aspect, how to actually have an effective partnerships, not just to leverage cloud infrastructure, but to actually build services together for different industries, for different verticals, looking at different use cases, and not bringing point products, but actually leveraging the collective assets that both carriers and public cloud providers have. So I like this as to think of this as really a joint business collaboration.
Okay, excellent. And Rajesh, what is your view? Are you seeing changing mindsets at the telcos?
Yeah, it's an interesting and symbiotic relationship, and it's a little bit of a journey. So if you see in the last couple of years, we've seen a number of partnership announcements from telcos around the globe. Some that come to mind straight away are AT&T's partnership with Microsoft and IBM, Verizon's partnership with AWS, and recently the Dish announcement with AWS, right? I think to name a few. I would not go as far to say that their business strategy is pinned to the cloud service providers. But I do think that the telcos like the cost benefits, they like the flexibility, they like the elasticity benefits of using a public cloud. Today, they are using the public cloud infrastructure for their IT and billing applications. I still think that most telcos will continue to build their own infrastructure for core network services in the foreseeable future. But there's definitely a nice symbiotic relationship building between the telcos and the hyperscalers, cloud service providers.
So let's come to our next question. Is it too early from a purely technology perspective to host 5G radio access network functionality on public cloud platforms? Rajesh, let's come to you first.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think it is still a little bit early. As all of us know, 5G RAN requires heterogeneous computing, such as acceleration for baseband and increasing use of AI accelerators for workloads such as RAN intelligent controllers and for other automation. So 5G RAN and associated services are also highly latency sensitive, and they desire a high quality of service that will require the applications to be distributed and deployed at the edge, enterprise and network edge locations. Now, the KPIs that are associated with the RAN are difficult to accomplish on a public cloud platform today. But I think that's going to change over time. Now, I want to actually make an important distinction. I like to contrast the difference between utilizing cloud native practices for RAN deployment, including massive at-scale automation, versus utilizing the public cloud infrastructure. I'm definitely seeing increased adoption of cloud native technologies, such as containerized applications, Kubernetes-based orchestration and automation, service assurance and observability using cloud native frameworks. This is definitely happening today as people build virtual RAN. However, it's going to be a while before the RAN functionality is hosted on a public cloud platform, in my view.
Okay. Gabriele, what's your view here about the radio access network?
Yeah, I agree that we have early days. We are in this stage right now, but there are many things happening. Number one, progressive disaggregation of radio. I would say we've seen a massive acceleration of Open RAN, so introduction of some of the early non-real-time, real-time radio intelligent controllers or near real-time rigs and so forth. I agree on the topic of cloud-native technologies being deployed. Therefore, discussing about RAN, there are multiple elements of a radio network, right? Where you can go the way to the centralized unit, the distributed unit, and so forth. Back to what I was mentioning before. If you look at public cloud as a large pool of computing, a large availability zone, maybe that is not the best location from a proximity latency perspective. But in addition to adopting public cloud technology or cloud native technologies such as containers and AI, I would say that working public cloud these days means that we are now proliferating our public cloud nodes, both on a massively distributed set of nodes around the world, but also bringing public cloud management into a fully managed offering that can land at the customer side, so all the way to the sell side. And in this case, a public cloud model, including lifecycle management, deployment, telemetry, turn up, and so forth. It's actually very advantageous when you start to see not hundreds but thousands or tens of thousands of nodes in run. So I think that we'll see a change, but not in the traditional way of looking at public cloud, but in a way where public cloud will reach all the way down and bring and support workloads all the way close to cell sites.
Absolutely, and great point about the terminology and what all these things actually mean right now and what they'll mean in the future. Fatih from Red Hat, what's your view about the 5G RAN?
I think the previous speakers addressed quite well. One thing I like to summarize is RAN is not a box solution. It's an umbrella solution that covers multiple components inside, right? And all these components come together and build the RAN solution. And each component in the RAN should be handled individually by means of technical dependencies, technical requirements, as well as business requirements and business dependencies. If we go one level deeper and see if any of these RAN components, RAN solution components can go public cloud, I would say yes, of course. And there are already pioneers in the field doing these migrations of these RAN solution components going onto public cloud and or public cloud extensions on premises. As I said, the key thing is what's the dependency technology and business-wise, and make sure from business-wise if the infrastructure that is hosting these RAN components is available, accessible, and affordable to justify return of investment, right? And from technology perspective, is it good enough for the volume of the traffic, velocity of the traffic? When I say traffic, obviously signaling and user plane and so on and so forth. So twofold, as I said, the summary. If technology is good enough for each component, and if the business is justified, yes, I think this is happening, and this will evolve to happen more for a lot of components under the RAN solution.
And our next question is, how can communication service providers manage multiple clouds effectively? Fatih, we're going to come to you for this one.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Very good question. So managing multiple infrastructures, especially one part of that portfolio not necessarily owned and not managed by you, by your operations team, is the challenge right now. Because when you look at each cloud provider has their own portfolio catalog of services, right? Which is tied with their own dedicated APIs. So one cloud API is different than other cloud API. So when you're collecting these multiple infrastructures to put your application on top of it, then you have to have a kind of an abstraction layer that continuously evolve and get up to date, because those APIs underneath from cloud providers is changing constantly. So that's the challenge. So what's the best way to go? Is mainly, I would say, infrastructure agnostic solution that gives you constant experience for APIs for your northbound into your OSS BSS systems, and you do not necessarily see or tackled by upgrades of the infrastructures underneath. I think the key thing is the generic abstraction for your managing multiple clouds is the key thing.
Thank you, Fatih. Let's come to you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Ray. Multi-edge and multi-cloud orchestration and management is a very important area, and it's ripe for innovation. Today, there are tools and solutions available that allow you to manage the infrastructure and applications across an on-prem enterprise edge and a hyperscaler cloud. Red Hat OpenShift is a great example of this. However, deploying applications and services across multiple edge and cloud locations is still very challenging. Intel is working with the community to address this challenge. We have an open source project called MCO. It stands for Edge and Multi-Cluster Orchestrator, where we are collaborating with other thought leaders in the industry to solve the multi-cloud orchestration problem. If you've not heard about MCO and would like to learn more, please talk to us and we would love to collaborate with you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Now, one of the big topics across the whole of the telecoms industry in the past year has been automation. So we've got a question on that now. Is automation the key to a successful 5G cloud? Gabriele, let's come to you there first.
Yes, Ray. I think not only it's important, but I would say it will become essential. Essential because without automation, you're not able to actually, tweak and change the cost benefits of what you want to achieve with 5G. And automation also means that progressively we start to see different carriers, and every carrier starting to actually manage multiple environments, and just even in the previous conversation, the previous question, right? So you now need to have multiple environments coming from your 3G, 4G, 5G evolution. And then you have different players, on-prem players, technology vendors, public cloud vendors, OSS, BSS vendors. So I start to see first of all, automation at the core, because now we are increasing the number of services, increasing the number of form factors, increasing the numbers of, for example, differentiation on application profiles, containers, VMs, moving to serverless in some cases, right? But also increasing the number of sites. So without automation, I think the cost curve will just go up and without control. And so I see somehow many carriers thinking of this layer of automation and orchestrating across multiple environments as a differentiation to bring services to market, but also to start to have their agility in innovation. Otherwise, they will still be left with different silos. So for me, it's key. And I think this will be one of the factors that will define success in 5G deployment.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And Aashish, let's come to you. Is automation the key to a successful 5G cloud?
I would like to add that not only automation, as Gabrielle said, is key, is essential, but standardization is also important. Where we see the benefit of Industry 4.0 and private networks, we're dealing with a different set of industries, verticals that are deploying things at a much faster pace. So not only the fact that the complexity of the technology has to be reduced down to something that the enterprises can understand, but also there's need for standardization, standardization of packages that they can easily consume, standardization of business models, and on top of that, the ability for telcos to completely manage that life cycle from the start of putting out an offer to automation to actually deploying the networks, to then managing those networks, as well as making sure that they get the right kind of operational and maintenance back in. So I do think that there is a need for not just automation, but also standardization and to prevent those two not being connected.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Fatih, let's come to you now.
All right. So throughout the years in telecommunication journey, for both from technology and from consumer side, one thing hasn't changed, which is the average revenue per user, ARPU, is getting lower and lower every year. That's the fact, right? So how the communication service provider cover that, losing that gap, is mainly the scale. You have to scale up your offerings. You have to scale up your coverage, and so on and so forth. So the way to do scaling is the key part in here, where automation will help communication service providers a lot. Because scaling means getting infrastructure up and ready, deploying your services, maintaining those services by means of lifecycle management. And scale, as much as you scale, you likely increasing your operational expenditure, right? The way to lower OpEx is mainly able to scale with automation. And automation in the sense of leveraging constant APIs, leveraging hybrid multi-cloud is the way to go in our perspective.
Okay, excellent points there. And Rajesh, for the final comment today, let's come to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Yes, I think automation is foundational. Network infrastructure complexity has been increasing, and rolling a truck every time we encounter a problem is expensive and results in service downtime and monetary loss. So, as we know, cloud service providers have pioneered massive at-scale automation, and now we have the ability to utilize the benefits of cloud automation tools for the 5G infrastructure. So I'm particularly excited at utilizing AI and machine learning techniques for closed loop automation that can make the network run almost like an autonomous car. So at a high level, what we are trying to do at Intel is the following. First, we are making it easy to collect the telemetry information, logs, events, and traces, and create data lakes with this telemetry information. And then the CNCF projects such as Prometheus, Fluentd, and Jaeger are mature software projects at this point, and they're becoming very popular choices for gathering telemetry data. Second, it is the AI piece. It is possible to create trained AI models based on historic time series data. So you can create models for failure scenarios, capacity issues, and load conditions. You can then drive real-time inferencing based on these trained AI models to make intelligent predictions and drive a predictive network behavior. Now, the third element is orchestration. Now, once you have the telemetry data, you have the trained AI models, and you can drive that predictive behavior, you can then apply the AI-driven prediction to the orchestrator to create closed-loop automation, delivering end-to-end service assurance. So as you can see, telemetry, AI-driven inferencing for network behavior prediction, and closed-loop orchestration and automation can realize a fully autonomous and automated network. So we're seeing this paradigm being successfully applied to RAN intelligent controllers. I think we talked about RICs before, energy management, end-to-end network slicing, fault tolerance and resiliency, and a few other use cases. From an Intel perspective, we are driving the technology leadership in key open source projects in collaboration with the ecosystem to deliver the full premise of cloud native computing in 5G infrastructure, and automation is a foundational element of that.
Okay, great answers, everybody. There's no doubt that automated processes have really come to the fore in the telecoms industry in the past couple of years, and cloud platforms are playing a great role in that. So thank you to everybody. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for sharing your views and opinions with our audience. Goodbye for now. And that brings our strategy outlook on 5G cloud to an end, and indeed our whole series on 5G. Don't forget you can view an extensive range of programs as part of our Spotlight on 5G week, from interviews and roundtables to live Q&As and special features. Today you can watch the final 3 episodes of our top 10 moments in mobile, where we take a look back at our best video content from 20 years of covering 3GSM and MWC. Yes, we've reached the coveted #1 spot. And tune in at noon UK time for The Slice, our daily news and analysis programme. Then Guy and I will be back at 5 PM UK time for the final live after show of the week. We'll also be answering your questions live on air, so please send them in now and we'll see you later. Goodbye for now.